happening, guys? Welcome back to Redbeard's Garage, and we have a super exciting tool, which you already know if you follow us, but it is a Hewitt Inertia Dyno. These are made right here in America with American parts. We have an awesome supporter of the channel, and Mark is an independent Amsoil dealer. He's been providing us with Amsoil and all the information of why you should use Amsoil, and if you use the links down below and become a preferred customer on Amsoil, you'll get up to 25% off on your oil purchases. And this stuff is awesome. They have all the literature you can read and proof that this stuff is better than the rest. So Mark generously was like, could y'all use a small engine dyno? And I'm like, yes, we can. So now we'll finally be able to prove that these parts that we're showing you guys how to install actually makes a big difference. And the biggest thing is on engine builds, people are always asking us, how much horsepower does it make? Well, we're given like a run-of-the-mill numbers that we've heard from dynos that say, dyno people that say, you know, it might make 20 to 25, somewhere's in that neighborhood. So we have no real accurate way though, but dyno don't work like it used to. So now we'll be able to prove what these parts make. So today we're just gonna get it all set up and run a stock. This is a Hemi 212. So we're gonna run this just to make sure we got everything going right with it. It came with a laptop, and then we had a 32-inch monitor sitting in the office I found on sale. So we're gonna put this on a stand later so we can have a bigger screen. We can do video overlays. This thing is super sick. Here's the little pedestal. I end up mounting the computer for the dyno in the back, like the main computer that has everything. It has a little pedestal. This is the brake, of course, that will stop the wheel. And this isn't, I haven't hooked anything up yet. And this is the throttle. So super pumped about it. We do have to do some wire management for our size. This is where it's going to be. We do also, not today, but when you see it in the first video, like actually running performance parts, we got to put some D-rings in the concrete to ratchet strap it down to keep vibrations down. So we'll have to do all that later. Do some ventilation so we can dyno in the winter time and run the exhaust out the wall. But we're super pumped. So what we're going to do is throw in some break-in oil, because this engine is brand new right out of the box and we haven't ran it yet. So we always use Amsoil. This has high zinc. This is going to help break in your cam and all the bearings and stuff in the engines. Highly recommend this stuff. So we're going to fill this engine up with it. We also got to put some gas, and we're using 93 octane, and we're putting Dominator Amsoil fuel additive in it that can knock it up, I think, up to 5 octane levels. So we'll be in the mid 90s in octane with this engine. So after we put this oil in, we're not going to be running the factory dipstick. We're going to run one of our magnetic dipsticks that you can find on rbgcarts.com. We'll also be able to see if things make a difference like our coils. I don't think they would. You know, it's more of a quality thing more than a performance and a looks, but it'd be cool to know if you could gain some sort of percentage from getting a little bit harder fire out of these engines. And this was a half quart. That's the beauty about these engines. Even though Amsoil is a little bit more expensive, you're of course extending the life of your engine a ton by using Amsoil, but also it's not that big of a deal when you run a small engine, because this only takes a half a quart, you know, per oil change. Also on rbgcarts.com, we do have these magnetic dipsticks. They have a neodymium magnet in the bottom of them, and they're super strong, as you can see. This is going to grab any kind of particles out of your oil, and it's very important on these engines to have something like this, because there's no oil filtration system. This also makes the opportunity for us to do a lot more videos, and one of them is the road to horsepower. I've been wanting to film this series forever, but the only thing that has stopped me is there's no way to show you guys the real proof. Like me and Lonnie can feel that our mini bikes are faster, but you guys can't. And it's also hard to show you with numbers like mile an hour and times of like 0 to top speed. So this will allow us to do the road to horsepower, which is if you're building one of these engines on a budget, of course you guys are starting with the cheapest part you can and working your way up. So we can do that on this engine and work our way up until we get to an all-out build, but we can do it piece at a time, like doing the stage 1 kit, which is the air filter, jet, and exhaust. Then we can remove the governor, put heavier valve springs and a billet flywheel. Then we can go on to cam and rod, then start doing head work, valve, you know, like ratio rockers, all types of stuff. We can test every cam on the market. It opens up the doors to make a ton of videos. So you guys are gonna see, as soon as we make sure we know what we're doing, because we wanna give you the most accurate numbers we can, we're gonna start pushing out the content like crazy.
Later that same evening.
Okay, so I've got the dyno pretty much set up. I've got some stuff that I haven't finished on it, but I had to make a few modifications to fit my needs with this dyno. So I'll run you down the setup. I'll give you guys the rundown of the setup. I'm super excited about this, by the way. And show you how I've got everything set up. It's going to change a little bit when we get some stuff that I've ordered in the mail, like a stand for the screen and stuff, just to make it more fun while we're doing pulls. But first I'll go through everything real quick, show you guys how I got it set up, and then we'll do our very first dyno pull, and hopefully it's as easy as they say it is. So of course I got the dyno set up in front of the door. Now I do have some eyelets I've ordered off of Amazon, and we need to drill and put thread inserts into the concrete. So when we want to use the dyno, we just bolt the eyelets down, the D-rings, and then ratchet strap the unit down so it doesn't vibrate and move. We did get the rubber casters on this model. You can add a bunch of different features to this. We did go with the rubber casters because we're planning on taking this to meetups and dynoing your guys' engines and making videos about that as well, because I think that'd be super excited to do an unlimited, you know, small block and big block and stuff, because we can do all the way up to a V-twin on this. So it's going to be super exciting. So there's the dyno set up. We have, this is the RPM wire that basically tells the setup about the RPM, I'm guessing. I need to ask him about setting that up. We have the kill line here. I'm going to wire management better. Like, it comes with a ton of wires because they don't know if you have a dyno room or whatever you got. And I'm going to shorten it some. But the way I've done the throttle is I put this as a throttle that goes from the control board, which I'll show you all that in a minute. We have the throttle cable that comes in, and what I've done is put two different throttle housings here. This is for a standard carb because it uses the standard throttle plate, and the second one is for Makunis because everybody knows if you mess with these that Makunis have a different throttle cable. So what I've done is use these little throttle linkages that come with top plates. Like if you get the one from Go Power Sports or wherever, they come with these little throttle eyelets or whatever. So I can just pull this pin and unhook this one and hook up the Makuni side so we can run either carb. So that's going to be super handy. Now on the back here, we have exhaust temperature, we have air temperature. This would do like your dyno room, or you can put it in front of your carb to see your intake temperature, things like that. And then we have a oil temperature sensor. We're not running any of this with the first pull. The only thing we're running is this one, which is head temperature, and it sandwiches in between the spark plug. This purple wire goes from that box there, and I've just stuck it in the sheathing of the spark plug wire, and that's going to tell the RPMs of the engine. Other than that, I think that is it. Yes, we went over all the sensors. Oh, and we got a wideband that's hanging right there. We're not going to be running it right now because it's a stock engine. So this is a bone stock Predator. I just took it out of the box. We're about to start it for the first time. We're going to do a few mild pulls to get it up to temperature, and then we'll do the main pull. We got the wires running over to this pedestal. I end up mounting my box. This is the main controller for the dyno on the back of this. I thought it was just nicer like that. I still didn't need to do some cable management. And then I've had this Junior Dragster auto meter tack I've had forever sitting on the shelf, and I'm going to wire it in so we got a manual tack. I think that'd be pretty cool, and I can just hook it up to the kill switch. So that's all that there. It's just a race kart style brake. This is the brake to break the dyno back down after the pull is done. And then we have a kill switch here that'll of course kill the engine. Then we have our throttle, which is hooked up. And right here we have, I did order a tripod for my laptop. It's gonna make it easier, but I have this, we got the laptop from him because if you ever mess with one of these dynos, he will offer to sell you a laptop, and I highly recommend it or ship him your laptop, because he fully sets up the dyno before you ever get it with the computer you're going to be using. So basically I have the software loaded up here. I went through everything with him on how to set up a new file, like if we're doing a customer's engine or something. So I'm going to throw you guys on a tripod. I'm going to cold start this, and we do got electric starter coming, should be here in a day or so. So we don't have to pull start these engines. We can just run a race kart style starter on every engine, even if it's stock, just because it's easier. But I'm going to throw you on a tripod. We're gonna do our first pull. We're got to do a couple pulls without the software being on to get the engine up to temperature, and then once it's up to temperature, we'll do our main pull and start the dyno session. So we'll see how that went. I don't know if I did it right. Who knows? Okay, so we've done our first dyno pull. We had to change something in the settings of the dyno. We'll go over that stuff later. There's a pretty cool thing you can do if you want to lie about your dyno numbers, but we don't want to lie. We want our accurate dyno numbers. So we had inflated numbers on that first run. We was reading like 9.5 horsepower. It was not 9.5 horsepower. It actually made a little under 6.5 horsepower. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the dyno a different way this time, and we're going to go from a dig. We're going to warm it up first, do a warm-up pull, then we're going to go to a dig with the flywheel being stopped, and that's going to give us better torque readings and everything. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully I do it right and don't look like a moron. If you ever wanted to inflate your numbers, so if you want to cheat, you would, basically this is a 2-inch wide flywheel. You can bump it up and like add 40% of width to it to change your dyno numbers. We're not going to get into it, but some people like to inflate their numbers. I'm not saying anybody specifically because I don't know. But if I wanted to, at first it was inflated a little bit, 40% of the thickness of the flywheel, and that changed my numbers. So the first run I was getting like 9.5 horsepower out of a bone stock. Like literally the only thing this has in it is 93 octane, actually like 96 octane, if octane booster really does what it says, which that's not going to change anything because you know, really, as long as we have good quality gas, we should get, on a stock engine we're at like an 8.5 to 1 compression ratio. But I did take out the throttle stop screw. So when you do that, you have a little bit of power over the governor, so you can rev it a little further. I do need to make a change in my dyno setup to have a higher RPM limit, because when I set it up, I knew this was a stock engine, so I put it at 4,000 RPMs. It should have been set at, you know, 9,000. So when we have a 9,000 RPM engine, we can run that. So that's the only thing I did, was took the throttle screw out. So this is the horsepower number that we're getting. And this seems around about the peak of it is about 6.24 horsepower and 7.79 foot-pounds of torque for this engine. And basically what we can do is click on this blue line anywhere, and it's going to change it. It's kind of hard to click on. You can see the numbers change for where, you know, the horsepower and torque fell off. It's very hard to click this one little blue line, but you can see there it changes for wherever you put this purple line in the graph. So of course blue is our torque and horsepower is green, so we're going to click there because that's about its peak is right in there, and that's what we got. So this engine makes 7.8, let's round up to the next decibel, 7.8 horsepower, or sorry, torque, and 6.24 horsepower. Now what the dyno company said is these engines stock, the piston's so tight in the hole, you can run this thing 4 different runs and it'll get vastly different numbers, is what he's seen out of the Predators. Because of how tight the piston is, once the ring seat and everything, the numbers will change. So we're going to fully learn this though before we do any kind of videos, because I don't want to give you guys any misinformation. We made sure to we changed our flywheel size, because at first it was inflated 40%, and I don't want inflated numbers. I want real numbers. I don't care if my engines aren't making what, you know, we said they would make. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to show real numbers. This ain't a prideful thing here. This is showing what really works and what don't, is what the whole purpose of this is. I do need to hook up this RPM gauge to make sure it's reading the same as the computer. Make sure everything's tweaked before we start the road to horsepower videos. This is extremely exciting, guys. I hope you're as excited as I am. Massive shout out to Mark. If you guys are in the market for any kind of oil, Amsoil products, use the link in the video description. And if you become a preferred member, then that will give you up to 25% on oils. You know, they vary depending on what oil they are, but you can get up to 25% off. So there's no griping about Amsoil being more expensive. It's a better oil. They have all the documentation you can read of all their extensive testing, and they stand behind their product. And it's an awesome honor to have this dyno in our shop, and Amsoil is part of our shop. So make sure to check out those links. We'll be doing a lot of pulls. This was just to show you the first test pull. We got a graph on screen of what this engine made, and I could be off a little bit, but it seems like that's what I would expect these engines to make. Is I know you're going to be within that. You're going to be within a half a horsepower or so on a stock engine. So it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of numbers we can make from mild to wild. So the road to horsepower starts in just a couple weeks. I want to really make sure I know what I'm doing with this, because I don't want to give you guys any false information. We're going to prove that these parts we've been preaching forever makes horsepower. How much, that's to be determined on a later date. So we're starting with the most basic horsepower, just like you guys would be doing at home on a budget. We're going to start with this stock Predator, and then we're going to bump up and add basically an air filter, jet, and exhaust for the first video. The next one will be removing the governor, adding heavier valve springs, and a billet flywheel, and then we'll go on from there until we got a crazy billet head and everything on this engine. So massive shout out to Mark. We thank you so much for supporting our channel. We thank you guys for watching the content and supporting us all these years. We can't wait for 2023 because we got a ton of awesome content. So we love you guys, and we thank you so much for supporting us. Make sure to check out those links. Support Amsoil, the link down below, because it does help us to make awesome content like this. We'll see you on the next one, guys. We love you, and God bless.